Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you did not hear what I just told Heather. So intriguing, isn't it? Anyhow,
Wait, are we just recording? We're not
we're
going live,
recording.
right?
We are. We're
Okay.
not live.
Okay.
We're just recording. So hi,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome to the experience. I'm so glad that you have made it to enjoy another episode. This is the 5th episode of the 4th season. And I'm inviting a very dear friend on the show. So I'm going to just welcome you, Heather Keller, my dear friend. Welcome to the show.
Woo, I finally made it.
Yay. And I was telling Heather before we started recording this that what's dropping in for me is really deepening into the place of discovery of self in the moment. So what I mean by that is, people have their credentials, they've done all the stuff that they've done, and I have my PhD or whatever. I don't have my PhD, but maybe you have my PhD. Anyhow, the point is that in each moment, we are our soul expression if we let ourselves be. And I want to be in the place of discovery. So Heather, I know, has done a ton of amazing things, and we'll see what comes up in the show, but I'll let you, Heather, just communicate from your soul and just let's get rolling. So welcome.
Thank you. It's fun to be here finally. We've been talking about this for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years.
I know. I mean, it's so weird how stuff drops in. There was another person that I was going to have on the show, this guy, Jack Elias, and I think he's really a big shot in the hypnotherapy NLP world. And I found him at one point, just looking at websites, and I was like, I think your stuff is so cool. It's so great. And this was, it had to have been like 4 or 5 years ago. And he just texted me, he was like, you still want to do that show? And I was like, sure. And he's like, he was talking about his books. And I was like, I have to, like, full disclosure, dude, I have to tell you, like, I know you're amazing, but it's not because I've read your books. I haven't actually read your books. I just know my heart is telling me that you're amazing. So if you're cool with that, yeah, come on my show. So tell the world about Heather Keller, because you're so amazing.
Well, I just want to back up for a second, because what you're pointing to is, like, I believe the future of how we're going to be relating to each other. And I think what you're stepping into and what you're presenting even right here is like the planning and the preparation and like the analyzing and trying to figure out things anymore don't really work. It doesn't work. I mean, it works to a certain extent, but for the people, for the souls that are evolving so quickly, I think we are modeling a different way of relating to each other and a different way of connecting to each other, and a whole new like we're just like in the physical plane, we're creating this new way of being, like, that we don't know.
Oh my gosh, your third eye is like a bright white light shooting out of it right now, and it's being recorded. So that is so freaking cool. So this is the truth right here. I mean, it like totally raw people. Like, one of the things that I know and I love about Heather is that you can really be just totally 100% self and raw and present. And she is just such a beautiful holder of space in that expression. And I totally agree with you, Heather, that what's happening is like what the old way of doing things of like, here are my credentials, here are my please take me seriously creds, are starting to break way to like, the shit's moving so fast. It's like, no, you gotta go faster than that. And it's not meant to like freak anyone out. It's sort of the way that operates, and this is sort of how I contextualize it, make sense of it, is my mental brain, my mental self, my intellectual self is so of that realm of the trying to figure it out. The executive mind is trying to figure it out, while the rest of me is like, dude, I get it. Like, just be with me and don't worry about the mental mind. And like, so that's a lot of the work that I'm trying to do with my clients too, is like help them like relax that that self that needs to make sense of it all and be in that flow. And you are so
or
good at that.
control. You don't even need to
Yeah.
make sense. It's like, I'm just trying to control things, like
Oh, yeah.
control my external, or control the future, or, make sure that I don't look bad, or make sure that I look smart, or looks,
Which is
and,
so subjective. It's so funny. I mean, it's so exactly where I'm at, like in my like expression as a business person, as an entrepreneur, is just like, what is that? What is that self that you're operating from? Like who is that?
yeah.
Who
And
is who's saying what you are? Someone's telling you, right?
well, it's like, well, as you were talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I just want to get that person or whatever that concept is out of the way, and just like get to the meat and like the juice of that. Like,
Oh, hell yeah.
Can't we just step over all that? Like, does it even
Yeah.
really matter? That's not what people are going to connect to with me anyway, or this conversation. They're not going to connect whatever. It's like, I mean, I can say all this fun stuff, like things that I've done and my accomplishments and blah, blah, blah. But really, it hasn't made me feel like any more powerful or any more like connected than being, being in the right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I've had to go through all of that stuff to get to here, which is without that stuff, It's like,
it's so honoring of where we've been. And I do want to share what I know of your accomplishments, not in that space that we're talking about, but really more as like kind of like the underpinnings of experience that cause you to be the person that you are. I mean, you're a deep feeler. I'm sure people can already pick up on that. And you're like exquisitely beautiful. I mean, just like goddess. And you've been a nurse for what, 25 years?
26 years. I mean, I have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
27
long
years.
fucking time. And
Long fucking time.
and what you know from that space is huge about, I mean, that informs, I think, who you are to a large degree, just because of the sheer amount of time that you've spent there and connecting with people and being, I think this is also really important for, women in general, but people who are working in the healthcare industry, like nurses are the unsung heroes, and and so often are sensitive souls and get beat up by the fact that they don't really know, how do I want to word it? And you can tell me, you can speak to this.
Like, not even, yeah, okay. Not
I
even
want to get these sparkles here.
Souls. Like, they are, love it.
Can't get it in
your,
the picture.
Your backdrop's rad. You got the backdrop on whatever they say.
On point, whatever. On fleck.
On flick.
On flick.
Yeah, or whatever. Fleek.
On fleek.
Yeah.
Anyway. That makes me think of something inappropriate. Anyway.
Or appropriately inappropriate.
But what were you saying? Yeah.
Oh, that a lot of the nurses are fucking angels. Literally, they're angels. And that's what they're here to be. I think that most of them probably don't even know that, or they haven't embraced that part of them. But I believe that that's happening more and more. I know it's happening more and more.
Tell me about that. Let's talk about your knowledge of that, because I have some, you hear stories, but I want to hear your point of view.
Oh my God. Well, it's taken me a long time to embrace this idea, even like an angel, like, really? Like, I come from a scientific background. I wanted to be a chemist. Like, I wanted to study matter, and molecules and atoms, like form,
Which you totally do anyway.
Alchemical now. So it's taken me a long time to and I have a really stubborn, hard head. So I've had to go through a lot in order to open up my mind and my third eye to trust the things that I've experienced, like the subtle realm and these other things like entities and masters coming into your meditation and, other multidimensional beings and even, doing past lives work with you. It's taken a lot of work to be able to embrace all of this. And yet there's been like this unsatiable desire to go deeper and deeper and deeper until, you know, here I am speaking light language. And, you know what, well, the reason I know that there's these angels is because I've been told on the outside, but I did a session with a friend, and she's a freaking angel. I saw her wings. Like I could feel, like the whole session was like me feeling her wings so that she could feel her wings. And like
to witness her angelic energy.
Absolutely. And it's like what helped her get through working in the hospital during this pandemic, because she's literally like falling apart. So, I mean,
we got to help our angels, people. Well, and I let's stick a pin in the light language, because we got to really go in there. We got to really move into a place of discovery about that, because I think a lot of people watching this may not even know what the heck that is. But just, I think what I'm hearing too with you, what you're saying is, we as we're divine beings, and we're living this human experience. And, you know, this may not speak to everyone, but I do know this of you is you're an incredibly deep feeler, and you have the gravitas to go freaking deep with people. And I don't think that that's super comfortable for a lot of people. So that is cool in and of itself. And then the ability, I think in this community of people who are really looking to evolve humanity, is really kind of how I see it, is to witness for each other what we may have blind spots to, so that the healing can happen, that sort of expotentiated place that we've invented that word for, you and me.
I love that you popped it in there. Oh, I missed you so much. So yeah, and like even just the fact that you keep saying like I'm a deeply feeling person, emotional, whatever. It's like that was also something that I had to like embrace for myself too, because it was used not intentionally, but I'm looking back now historically, like someone that I highly revered as a mentor calling me like, or not calling me, but accusing me of like wearing my heart on my sleeve, and somehow that made me, you know, unprofessional. And so now it's like
huge.
And so now it's like a superpower, and it's taken me a long time to embrace that, you know. And I think that you know, being able to go deep is also really threatening sometimes for people. And also like to learn how to, it's like a really sharp knife. Like if you know, and trying to teach a kid how to use a sharp knife, like that's how it's been. It's like, okay, well, I didn't know I had all this like fierceness inside, not even fierceness, but like just this ability to see is kind of threatening for people.
Well, people spend their entire lifetimes trying to disguise that and hide it from themselves. And so when they're like shoving it into the closet, and it's like, okay, it's out of sight, out of mind for me, but you're like, ding, and they're just like, like it feels so exposed, right? And I get that. I mean, it's that feeling of vulnerability that our culture has spent. Really, I mean, it's probably part of the very beginnings of humanity, because if you're vulnerable, you could get eaten by a lion, right? Like hunter-gatherer style. Or the perception of vulnerability has translated into life or death, right? But it's not life or death now. We're good.
It is. I think it is though, actually. I think it's like either you're going to actually live your life, or you're going to die a slow suffering, soul sucking death as something else.
Yes.
Because you're trying to be strong. Like, fuck all that.
Is that living?
Where's that, girl?
Yeah. Is that living? So, and I think that it's not living. And oh, it's so juicy. I mean, it is so juicy. And I just encourage, I mean, for me, and feel free to jump in here, what I encourage people to do is to find loved ones, friends, beloveds that you can feel deeply with, and that are honoring of whatever it is that you're feeling. Even if you're not comfortable wearing your superpowers, on your sleeve, right now, but just getting comfortable with starting to entertain the idea that you're more, and that your feelings are not a curse or a burden. They're a superpower.
Well, and they're also your, your GPS system, because like, if you're not listening, following, acknowledging, honoring them, they're not gonna go away. They're probably just gonna get more intense, and then or transform into something stronger, so that you start to pay attention.
Right. That you don't want to have to something in the physical body.
Yeah. But I wanted to back up a second about that being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't look at me.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget it. It's like such a poignant moment in my whatever life, when I was doing yoga teacher training in 2002-3, and Baron Baptiste was my teacher, and he has this uncanny ability to see people's authenticity. Like, you're in the spotlight, and he would call people up, and this was my first experience in like transformation work, and it was so like amazing and like transformative and powerful. And I would see the people go up on the stage, and he would break them down and break them open. Not all of them, but some of them that were ready. Here I was like, don't look at me. I don't want to be seen. There's nothing here. Don't look over here. I'm just going to hide out. And then
of course he called you.
No,
he didn't.
Actually, we were just like at this like after eat dinner session or whatever, and everyone's relaxed talking, and I walked past him, and he looked at me, and that's all he had to do was like look at me, and I was like, yeah, and I just felt it in my body, like, oh my God, like that's too powerful, it's too strong, blah blah blah. But I'll never forget that moment, because it was so profound, and I can speak to it now on the other side distinctly. Part of the gift that I have, that it will be given, is that experience, because I can now use that to sort of like create space for people to feel safe enough to allow me to see them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's taken a lot of work to be able to like navigate that space, that create that safe space. And I think nursing has actually been one of my greatest teachers to be able to do that, to be with people when they're at their most vulnerable, like,
sure,
they don't have a choice but to allow someone to take total care of them, or their life is in my hands, or their children's lives, or whatever, or they're, confronting death, or they're confronting the death of their child. Like, those moments that you'll never forget, I get to be in those spaces, and like, I don't even know these people. So
it's like, so sacred. And I love what you're saying. And would you be willing to sort of deepen into your awareness about how that creating space with that gift that you have has come forward? Because I would imagine that there are so many people who are navigating that and don't really even know what to do with it. It almost feels like, like searing somebody with a hot poker when they have the ability to see, and not able to really know what to do with it,
Yeah, actually, just this week, I've started doing we call it the light portal. It's a weekly transmission of light language, and we have like a light language conversation in a private group online. And
cool.
It's mostly women. It's a small group, but it's very sacred, and it's been happening since the beginning of this year. And the messages are pretty universal. But this woman has been coming, and I hadn't I'd met her in person once, maybe. And every time she'd show up, she was kind of like really not feeling well, but she would show up every time consistently. And I would feel very connected to her. Like, I definitely knew her, my heart. I could feel my heart. I could feel her heart in my heart. That's how I described it to her
So cool.
afterwards. But so anyway, there was a moment where she was having these intense, she was having an intense ear infection experience, throat, ear infection, pressure, terrible body ache, like just felt terrible. She'd been to see, she's definitely on the holistic side. She didn't want to go to a doctor. She's trying to do everything holistically and it hurts like hell. She got on the thing, and I got during the transmission that part of my transmission was for her to help ease her pain. I didn't say anything about it, but in my awareness, it was there. And then I messaged her after and I was like, look, I have something to tell you. So we got on the call, and the message that came through was that, she has these amazing abilities to hear, see, feel. She has many gifts. She has so many gifts. And so She just began to tell me everything, her whole, like all of her things that she's experienced. She's just like, Heather, I've never shared this with anyone before. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't know what to say, but like, I know that I was supposed to create this space for you because my heart was just like, I could feel her heart calling. And it was like something that I had to do. I just knew I had to do it. And
she needed your help. Her heart was calling for your help, for something that you could pick up that she couldn't yet.
Exactly. And so now she's like, she's literally transforming, so fast. And it's like this time right now with everyone going through so much stuff. Sorry, I thought I put on do not disturb, but they're still disturbing.
It's okay.
People are like, moving fast, really fast. I don't know if you're feeling this too. I'm sure you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's time. I think it's time. I mean, and thank you for sharing that story. I know that it's really poignant for people who are listening and will be guided to that. I'm feeling it very much in the sort of, I think when I thought that, like ascension talk was really sort of more in vogue. I mean, I think we're sort of beyond the ascension talk and sort of evolving into a different conversation. But when it was sort of like, we're all like, everything's going to evolve and we're all transforming. I had this feeling that all of the structures of the institutional realm and stuff would all collapse. And I feel like there's a refinement happening that is not necessarily collapse, but it's like, when you had mentioned it earlier in the conversation, it doesn't work. So there's an organization that I'm involved in, and I'm not going to say what the organization is, but there's clear evidence that this organization is flagging, primarily because it's not able to adapt and evolve. This is my perception of it. I mean, and I think it's really interesting. There's so much evidence of growth and thriving, and it's all in the space of like, I mean, you see it kind of on social media, like people becoming like instantly wealthy or whatever. And not to say that means that's the evolved point of view, but the idea that evolution can happen very quickly when we line up with what is really true for us and present in our field. And that feels really spacious and amazing to me, because it doesn't feel like loss. It just feels like what's next,
Mm-hmm. Well, what you were saying about alignment, I mean, that just like, that's everything, and also this thing, resonance, is really a focus for me now, and really diving deeper into sound, harmonics.
Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
Well, it's been so long since we talked, but so I'm, I'm in the middle of writing a thesis on how light language can heal, and investigating sound and the history of sound, and how ancient civilizations have utilized sound, and how it becomes formed. And there's so many like technologies now, so we can actually look and experience the multidimensionality of sound and how it creates form, and these like foundational structures, like cosmic, like sacred geometry structures, we'll say, but they're really the grounds of everything. Like everything is built in this beautiful way, like these if anyone's done any type of psychedelics, have seen like this is how our form is created. And so I'm just peeling back the layers. I've been peeling back the layers, like going through asana, going through meditation, going through all of these layers, and now I'm here at the beginning of like, okay, can't go farther back than sound,
right?
I mean,
yeah, it's
vibration,
right. Even
movement.
in the Bible, it's like first there was the word, which is sound, right?
Exactly. And so and there was so many, like Edgar Casey, I mean and so many great theologians who have predicted like this is the medicine of the future. I mean, and we're already using it, in allopathic medicine in the form of ultrasound and lasers to break up densities. It's not like we're not already using it. It's like just taking it to the next level. And like what you said, it's not working, but I think that the souls that are in it now are going to start like blossoming, and then bringing this other world of consciousness into everything that's already existing.
Yeah.
And so
I totally agree. And I have to say, like, hanging out with you in person, you have turned me on to some of the coolest technology. I mean, I think that's something that's a part of what your resonance draws forward, and is the awareness of who's doing the cool technology. And that's a really big deal. I got to, I don't remember what it was called, and maybe you could speak to this, that it was like a resonance machine where you literally spin around and then you have this light beaming at your face, and then this like total psychedelic trip happens and it's all your own brain creating it. And it was the most amazing thing I had done. What is that thing called?
The theta chamber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's some crazy stuff going on, and I had a thought that I wanted to bring in here, but resonance. So what was sort of, as you were talking, what was being sort of revealed to me was that the people who are bringing their energy to the place of resonance are just totally interconnected. Like there's total a network. Like I can see the network sort of globally and sort of galactically, like we're all in communicado on some trippy level energetically, and we're all a part of the same vision, helping each other tap in. And there's another thing. Who's that guy? Hans Yannick, is it? Or the guy who does So Mad, is it it's what's the name of sound, studying of sound, psionics, cymatic, maybe. Yeah. So that's where it's like you play some frequency and then like the sand will pop into the primal shapes of the universe.
Yeah, Jon Stewart, actually there's a video.
Jon Stewart of like the comedian Jon Stewart?
No, Jon Stewart. I hope I have his name right. But anyway, the guy that's doing a lot of cymatics work and research, he went to the sarcophagus in Egypt in the temple, and he had some terrible like back pain. He took his machine in there. He like had to convince the Egyptian government. I don't know if you know, but
no, I don't know about this. But the Egyptian government is pretty restrictive. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. So somehow he got permission, and he almost didn't go because it's all in the video, but he almost didn't go because of his back pain was so severe, but he went anyway because he knew. He got into the sarcophagus. He started sounding, toning, and he had his thing going. Of course, when he got out, his back was completely healed. But on the cymatics machine, one by one, hieroglyphics started forming.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's on the video too. It's
That's
freaking
really
crazy.
cool. You have to send that to me. Send it to me, and then I can put it in the description box of the video, this video, so people can check it out. That is so super cool. Treasure trove of wisdom. Yeah, sound is one of those things that I think is where we're headed, is the future, is the technology of the future. I mean, and the Vedic scientists or whatever knew all along with mantra, the sort of primordial sounds of the universe and how to be in alignment with manifestation through the voice is so empowering, right? I mean, I think
and the crazy thing is that our voice is the only instrument that can replicate every single tone that there is known, because everything is the scale is like an octave of one tone or another. So it's like, it's great that there's instruments, and like that is also very valuable, but really we've been given this gift of our voice, and if we can learn how to yield it and use it for healing ourselves, like, well, what greater gift is there for the planet? Like, it's
gosh, I so agree. And you know what that makes me think of is how, and this is something that is really, like, this topic is really near and dear to my soul, is the idea that we spend so much time with gadgetry and technology and building outside ourselves as if we're on this quest to find the perfect technology for humanity. And it's like, we're going to get to the point where we recognize that it's us. Like, we are that technology that we're striving to create.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no machine that could replicate our consciousness. I mean, it's just not possible. And we're just going to continue to be evolving. So, and embodying higher and higher dimensionality. So it's like, nothing can supersede that. I mean,
no. I mean, it maybe could be slowed. The progress could be slowed, but I think it could also be accelerated depending on who decide. I mean, how empowering is that like, you don't have to buy anything outside yourself. You can just go within and find all of the answers. I mean, that's really the hallmark of what my work is all about. So you're in an undisclosed location in Mexico, and do people, are the people that you're in community with, is there a level of open-heartedness or connectedness that you're noticing that is different than other places that you've been?
I feel very protected. I feel not isolated. I feel very connected to nature here. And I've chosen to disengage a lot from the noise. It feels a lot like noise. And choosing to just really consciously fill my space, my day with a lot of nature, a lot of actually physical work, and then my studying, and just being, really just being. I had a nursing thing that I finished in April. So it's been a couple months now just doing this. And, I think the whole planet is dealing with different levels of fear. And so I have my own levels that I'm dealing with. It's not like I've escaped fear. Your fear is individualized perfectly for every human. No matter where you go, it's going to be there. So even though on the outside, the world looks like a paradise, it's not like I'm not dealing with those things too.
Navigating.
But I think I've been blessed enough to be able to be here, and life is very simple. I'm finding like-minded people. we're doing acro yoga again, and like
Acro
spending time in the
yoga? What's that?
Mhm. Acrobatic yoga. So you
Oh,
do that in community with like partner, and you're basically like finding ways to communicate without words. And
wow.
and it's a lovely, amazing like complement to any type of movement practice. But and also it's kind of like dancing yoga. You're dancing with a partner.
That's really cool. It sounds very intimate too, like very important for sort of moving beyond that.
Building trust.
Building trust. Building trust for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. So,
Wow.
just things like that I've missed since the pandemic started, and getting back to those things, and teaching yoga again, and teaching a class around toning and using our voices, which is a stretch for me since it's very uncomfortable a
Oh my
lot.
gosh, that's so good. Are you doing that online?
No, I'm doing it in person.
Uh-huh.
I've thought about doing it online, because it's such a unique kind of class.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's actually at a retreat center here. And
Cool.
so yeah, it's been fun to step back into being a teacher, you know. So
So
yeah.
and the reason I say, getting your work about toning out into the world, I do think that a lot of people are wanting more of that to make it accessible. And I think it would be interesting sort of technologically how to communicate, how to convey that. I'm sure in the presence of someone, in physical presence with someone, the toning is a pretty magnificent visceral experience.
Well, it's actually just really for yourself. I mean, I don't need, I think I'm actually working on a workshop program, intensive with a friend, for
Cool.
that. It's called the Voice Recovery Program.
Love it.
So that'll be coming soon, and that's not going to be all online.
Oh, good. So you can send all of that stuff to me too, so people can access that through this show. Once, even if it's not done right away, I can just post it afterwards.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. And it's
Ooh.
also gonna like, we're gonna weave in some communication stuff too, since our voices are used for communicating. So it's gonna be really fun and multidimensional.
Awesome. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's sort of like I think about going into those higher realms. I mean, if you've, done any sort of hallucinogenic, it is an altered state of altered experience, altered state of consciousness, which is, I personally believe that we're entering into this space of having control over where our consciousness goes, like having more of a decision point in what happens. So I mean, just in the awareness of what is being present is such an evolution to where we were in a more kind of primal fright or flight state of like if you're always fighting for survival, to eat, for shelter, and even like our
Commuting.
ancestors commuting. Oh my God, commuting, right? Like it's so easy to be in that unconscious state because that's all and you're not even, it is truly a luxury to be able to step back and have awareness of where your consciousness is in any given moment. And then to take it from the awareness phase to the choice phase is so, I mean, what that potential can do for us is huge. And then going into like choosing to go into altered states. And not that I think that chemicals are, of getting us there. I think they're a precursor to what is possible from within ourselves. Like we can do that ourselves, and we don't need to have any other support other than, us, whatever us allows us to do. And it's not a judgment about chemicals at all. It's just like, and we can do this ourselves. And what are the implications of our planet and our place in the universe, if we can start to evolve into that like decision place where we're like, okay, this is where my
I think
consciousness can go.
this is exactly what they didn't want us to understand or have access to. It's like, well, it's kind of, it's just happening. We're just evolving around it,
Right,
through
it's
it,
undeniable.
and it's coming back for us to know, like the ancient civilizations that were calling in the deities, that had, you know, all of these amazing, or this deep understanding of how things worked, is because they had access to it and they knew how to get access to it. And part of it is through, you know, well, our awareness, of course, but also they used tones to do this. They used these vowel sounds. Like, it's like, that's what they use. So now we get to embrace it again and go back and come from a higher perspective even, you know. So it's exciting time.
Yeah, and it can't be, I think what becomes clear is it can only be held back for so long. And it's such an old school, I think, mentality where a human mind or a being feels like they need to control the masses because that's the only way to be powerful. I think that is such an old paradigm where it makes so much more sense to me that an empowered humanity that is evolved and an open-hearted and able to see and support the success of the entire collective is like exponentially more powerful than one or a handful of beings calling the shots.
Well, I've just finished the Celestine Prophecy.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you've read it.
I did like 20 years ago.
Well, it's here. It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
So for people who haven't read the Celestine Prophecy, it was a big book back in the day and it's happening now. So what do you see from that book that's happening?
Well, I never read it back then. And so just reading it now for the first time, it was introduced from a good friend of mine. She's like, I think you're living the prophecy. So I was like, just telling her about how things were going, you know, like all these freaking crazy coincidences. Like I could never plan these things, you know. She's like, you need to read that book. And I was like, okay. So anyway, reading the book, I was like, through it fast.
It's so,
you know,
devour it.
And all the things that I've, you know, been thinking about, understanding, like when we were talking about Barbara Marx Hubbard and how people are going to work together and how there's no competition and how like everyone knows that what they have, like the people that come into your life on the day-to-day are bringing you a message, and everyone has, it's not a coincidence that, you know, you're seeing these people throughout your day, but if you don't stop to acknowledge that they have a message for you, you won't get the message, you know? And then the whole, your whole everyday just becomes this miracle of like surprises and like synchronicities
Magic.
and like magic, just your life just lights up. And there's, anyway, so yeah, having that validation and like even just reading the book as these things are happening, reading the book and like, and then he talks in the book like, I bet you're reading this book and you'll notice the things that I'm talking about are happening in your life. And I'm like, wait a second, I feel like
oh my gosh. What's so cool about that too is that moment where you're talking about, for me anyway, this really pings in my system, is the recognition of each person that comes into your life as a synchronous moment, and that it's meant to be, and to acknowledge it is to further is to deepen into your spiritual connection, into your reverence of what's truly meant to be noticed. And I think that also goes for the awareness in the physical body and what you're talking, and this kind of ties into the last show that I did with Gina Pirro, where she's a former Rockettes dancer, where she got injured on stage and got like a brain and spine injury. And her doctors of all people, I think you would appreciate this. Her doctors of all people, of all of who would do this, they're like, in order for you to get better, you have to notice exactly what's happening in your body every 10 minutes, like within 10-minute intervals, which is like, you know, to notice emotional changes, temperature changes, you know, all, like, just get really sensitive to anything that's changing at all. And if anything changes, you can't move, you can't dance on stage. And so she never went on stage again, because of course there's so much going on, but she got this like insane awareness brought on by modern medicine saying this, you need to tune into yourself at a very, very deep level. And that was her sort of initial training. But this is what I'm talking about, is the awareness, is that acknowledge point, even within your body, like someone coming into your life. Yes, acknowledge there's magic. What will come of that? Same goes for the little messengers that come within your physical awareness, or your sensory awareness, or your emotional awareness, your spiritual awareness. They're just as valid, just as significant, right? Yeah. So hopefully people can relate to this stuff that we're talking about, because it's where we're headed, you know. And whether you feel called to work with a person like Heather or me or other people in the field that are lighting your energy up, that you're feeling drawn to, pay attention to that, because your soul is totally speaking to you, you know.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you know, following the intuition or the pull, you know, or even just the curiosity, like, you know, noticing what is calling your attention, sometimes, you know, leads you down paths that may be uncomfortable, but it's always a value to give you information of like either your preferences or what doesn't work anymore, you know, and or where we need to let go or what we need to embrace. And sometimes it is uncomfortable, but it's always for our ultimate expansion and to growth. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that.
No, I totally agree with you. I was just thinking about like, I'm so curious if this would even like fly in this conversation, but like what are some of the most uncomfortable feelings that you've ever had to navigate through?
Well, one's just popping up in my head right now. And it's not like the most uncomfortable. Maybe one of them was like apologizing to my dad. You know, I've done a lot of work with landmark programs, and they encourage you to resolve resentments and things that you've held against people for a long time. And those are probably the moments that were the most uncomfortable, because they're basically held in your physical body, your cellular matrix on some level somewhere. And there's a lot of resistance to acknowledging it and sharing it, that uncomfortability, with another human being, especially if there's a lot of like, you know, uncomfortable feelings, emotions, and past experiences. But those things are like, in the moment, you feel like your body heat up, literally, or sweating, you know, and your body's literally changing its cellular matrix in the moment, you know, the neural pathways that are holding those thoughts and those emotions in your field. They don't go away. They may be like tucked back somewhere where we're not paying attention to them, but they're heavy. And so when those things get exposed through just awareness and sharing, which is love to me, they literally dissolve. And they're hugely significant to a lot, so, you know, setting ourselves free. And
they create a totally different flow, right? Sorry, what were you saying? I jumped on what you were saying.
That's okay. Just this last couple of weeks ago, a new friend wanted to come down here because she was so enticed by, the way things are and the freedom. Anyway, so I invited her down, and there was some miscommunication, and I felt uncomfortable, like, inviting her to stay in my room. But there was misunderstanding, and she thought it was okay. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to see how it goes. But I knew in the beginning, like, I really am treasuring my personal space. Like, I'm feeling like, I'm not a kid anymore, and I like my own bed and my space and da, da, da. Anyway, so, she was doing some things, of course, right, that was annoying me. And, I'm watching myself get really annoyed. And then, everything changes when you're in that space of being annoyed, because then that person
like your
seems more annoyed.
bandwidth of what can come through, right, is pretty.
Yeah, I'm not having a good time. I can't laugh. All I'm thinking
This
is like this.
sucks.
Rah, 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 rah. Exactly. I'm like, I don't want to be around her. I'm like, so nothing's fun. And I just couldn't understand why no one could feel that. Like, I was like walking around with like this haze around me, but no one else could feel it. Like, am I really that good at disguising it? I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, it got to a point where I was just like, and I just like screamed, and she's in the room experiencing this with me. And so I went through this whole thing. Like, I saw my childhood. I saw my relationship with my parents, like not speaking up for myself. Like, I'm literally going through this whole thing right in front of her. And she's like sitting on my bed. And I was like, but you know what? I was like talking about it to her. I was like, this isn't about you. And this is really good, but I gotta like go through this right now, and it was very
welcome to my world.
But it was like so cathartic, like,
oh, it's good. I mean, it's so deep. It's so potent, so good.
Yeah.
It's so in the moment.
Yeah. And so then I felt clear, and the relationship, of course, shifted and changed, which should have probably been in the beginning. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
if I would have just acknowledged what was there to say in the beginning and acted on it, then that probably would have never happened. Not to say that it was wrong or right or anything, but it's just how it went, Well,
it's probably what is required in order to, catch it earlier next time,
Exactly.
That's the learning, right? This was last week that this happened to you?
No, it was a bunch of weeks ago, but
I had a very similar experience, not with a visitor of a friend, but a potential client that I didn't listen to myself, and had to go through the discomfort of realizing that I didn't really want to work with this person at all. And then had to, like, hey, by the way, I just want you to know that this isn't going to work for me. And it's such a refinement to go through that process, because it's like, I'm never going to have to go through that again. I'm going to listen the first time. I'm not going to ignore. And I think that's part of that becoming more aware of what was unconscious before. And it's not a failing. I mean, I really feel this is important. It's not a failing to catch it after it's already that it's already started going down that road, but to actually be active in pursuing a shift is so brave and powerful. And it will help to make sure that it happens earlier and earlier. And I think that awareness, when we get really refined and it drops in, we know, and that's that knowledge that, it starts to become more of a mastery, and not with ego. It's more of a like, oh, I know that, like, it's like how we were talking about getting our guidance, a few years ago, when we were just starting to really pay attention. It's just refining that on a deeper level. Like, I don't need to doubt this. This is totally my truth. And I don't, like, that is the first, the first line of awareness that I have. And then everything else just is, either a resonance or non-resonance with that truth.
Yeah, it's everything, just like you said. It's not like a black or white, it's a total refinement. And the more and more that you're aware of yourself, like, the it was just, it was uncomfortable, like being in it. And as soon as I like separated myself from it and just allowed myself to do myself,
yeah,
it was like the bubble popped, and
it's almost like stepped out of obligation of like how I'm supposed to be with this guest. I invited this guest, I'm supposed to be, or whatever. And it's like, but you've also probably really shifted something for her in terms of, I mean, I don't know. I would imagine that for me, if I were on the receiving end of or I was on the other end of that experience, maybe I would be miffed or disappointed or sad or whatever, but I would also know that I would like better communication. I would like more clarity in the future so that there can be some, if I know of a way to help my people to feel more in alignment with where they're feeling, then I want to know that, even if it's uncomfortable in the communication of it,
Exactly. Clarity is everything.
So before we sign off, because it's already been an hour to zooming by, what would you like to share with this audience? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel is on your heart to share?
Well, I'm going to ask it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to talk much about, channeling and some of the things that I'm wanting to share now. And that is, well, what you're saying about embracing the refinement, embracing who we are and the information that we receive is like, that's sort of where I am now, more and more, I should say. But offering channeled healing sessions for people, and they're here locally and then also online.
Cool.
And so, and I think that, like this one woman, it's like people are learning more and more about who they are. And and the sound and the messaging helps to turn on and dissolve different areas in their, subtle bodies that are causing blocks or resistance or whatever. And sometimes we have masters and ascended beings show up, and so it's a party sometimes, and it's a lot of fun. For me,
yeah,
and for them. But yeah, I think this is part of the transition of like, we're starting to intermingle, communicate with other dimensional beings, and starting to bring them in through our experience and make it normalize it. So yeah,
when you are
that's
I've witnessed you being a conduit for that deep work. And so if people want to work with you, how do they get in touch with you?
So I can send you a link for like a appointment scheduler.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to put that all in the description box, and I'll also provide a way that you can get directly in touch with Heather if that is comfortable for her. And of course, we're going to have you on the show. This is just one of many, but feel free to ask questions, and we'll be sure to get back to you with any of those answers that we can provide to you. But this show is meant to be a resource for you to have your deeper awakening within yourself and to come home to who you truly are, who your soul knows you to be. And so, Heather, thank you so much for joining us. I love you.
Nora. Perfect timing. I love you so much.
Awesome. Well, and so I'm just going to stop the recording so you can stay on, but for you all, I'll see you next time, and have a wonderful rest of your, whatever you're doing. Much love.